He beat me bloody over a mortgage. Even the cops said they'd never seen anything like it. My brother-in-law beat me bloody over a mortgage. My sister blamed me. I collapsed, begging. Even cops shook. It started in my own kitchen, the place that was supposed to feel safe. The afternoon light was spilling through the blinds, cutting sharp lines across the counter, and I was just trying to explain myself for the third time. "I can't co-sign another mortgage for you," I told him, my voice steady, careful. "I'm still paying off my own. It's not possible." He stood there, jaw tight, breathing like he'd just run a mile. My sister lingered behind him, arms folded, eyes cold. "You think you're better than us now?" he asked. The way he said better sounded like an insult. "No," I said. "I'm just protecting myself, that's all." I barely saw his arm move. One moment I was standing upright. The next my cheekbone exploded with pain, and I was on the floor, the world tilting sideways. The taste of blood filled my mouth before I could even register the hit. "What the hell?" I gasped, clutching my face. My sister didn't scream. She didn't rush forward. She didn't stop him. She just crossed her arms tighter and snapped, "You brought this on yourself." Those words cut deeper than his fist ever could. I tried to push myself back with my hands, sliding on the cold tile, but he stepped forward, shadow swallowing me whole. His voice was low, venomous. "You think you can make me look like a fool? Ruin my plans?" Another blow, this time to my ribs, sent fire through my chest. I wheezed, trying to breathe, but each inhale felt like stabbing glass. Somewhere in the background, I heard my sister's voice again, not worried, not pleading, just angry. "Stop making a scene. You're being dramatic." I wanted to scream, but the air wouldn't come. My palms left the smears of red as I tried to crawl toward the door. "You think you can just walk away from this family when we need you," he growled. My vision blurred. The walls felt like they were closing in. I caught a glimpse of my phone on the counter, too far to reach. Then, faint at first, I heard it, the rising wail of sirens in the distance. Relief tried to creep in, but it was drowned out by a deeper fear. What if they didn't believe me? What if this somehow became my fault? I looked up at my sister one last time, silently begging her for help. She just stared back with something that looked a lot like satisfaction. My chest tightened, but not just from the pain. This wasn't just violence, this was betrayal, the kind you can't ever come back from. But the worst betrayal wasn't from his fists, it was from her words. The steady beep of the hospital monitor was the only thing breaking the silence. I stared at the ceiling, the white tiles blurring together as a dull ache pulsed through my ribs. Every breath felt like my lungs were wrapped in barbed wire. I could still hear her voice. "You brought this on yourself." It replayed in my head over and over, colder each time. The nurse adjusted my IV, gave me a quick smile, and left me alone again. That's when the memories began to flood in, memories I wished I could erase. Years of being the one she called when she just needed a little help. Watching her kids so she could have a night to herself. Handing over rent money with promises she'd pay me back soon. She never did. But I told myself she was my sister. That's what family does. And then there was him. The first time I met my brother-in-law, he had a grin too wide to trust. Within months, I heard the whispers. Bad credit, maxed out cards, a business venture that collapsed before it began. But every time I asked questions, my sister shut me down. "You're always so negative. Why can't you just support us?" I did support them, over and over, until I was drained dry. Lying there in that hospital bed, the puzzle pieces started sliding into place. His demand for the mortgage cosign wasn't desperation. It was entitlement, and maybe something worse. Later that evening, my friend Mark came to see me. His face tightened when he saw the bruises blooming along my jaw. "This wasn't just him losing his temper," Mark said quietly. "I saw the way he looked at you at the last barbecue, like he was sizing you up for something." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" Mark leaned closer. "He's been talking about you to other people, about what you owe them. The way he spoke, it's like he's been building up to this." The idea made my stomach churn. The thought that my own family could plan something like this, that the violence wasn't just a snap, made the room feel colder. I tried to convince myself Mark was overthinking it, but deep down, I knew he wasn't. There had been signs. The way my brother-in-law would mutter about me holding out on them. The way my sister's smile would fade whenever I said no. That night, after Mark left, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation, every moment that now felt different in hindsight. The memories weren't random. They were clues I'd ignored. My phone buzzed on the side table. The nurse had charged it for me. With shaky fingers, I unlocked it. And there it was. A notification from a group chat I didn't recognize. My sister's name. His name. A preview of a message that made my heart stop. I opened it and the words burned into me like fire. If they won't pay, they'll pay in another way. And then I found the message that proved this was no accident. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. The message glared up at me from the screen, casual and cruel. If they won't pay, they'll pay in another way. It wasn't just him, her name was right there, laughing along with him in the group chat, adding her own poison. They act so high and mighty, but they're just a walking ATM. Walking ATM. That's what I was to her, not a sister, not someone she loved, just a machine she could kick until money fell out. My stomach twisted, but not just from the bruises. The truth was a heavier blow than any punch her husband had thrown. Every ride I'd given her when her car broke down. Every time I'd picked up her kids at midnight because she couldn't deal right now. Every bill I'd paid in the name of helping family. All of it reduced to a joke in a group chat. I scrolled further. Their messages were flippant, smug, as if planning ways to pressure me was some kind of game. My sister wrote, "Don't worry, he'll crack. He always does." And his reply made my chest ache. "If not, we'll make sure he regrets it." The words blurred, my vision stinging. I set the phone down before I dropped it, my breathing ragged. The hospital room was suddenly too quiet, the sterile air pressing in on me. Something inside me shifted in that moment. The grief was still there, but it started to harden into something sharper. Anger. Resolve. I pulled the blanket off my lap and sat up, ignoring the way my ribs screamed in protest. My phone was still on the bed. I unlocked it again, this time for a different purpose. I opened my camera and began photographing everything: the swelling around my eye, the deep purple bruise along my jaw, the angry red marks where his hands had shoved me. I took close-ups, wide shots, every angle I could. Then I screenshotted every message in that group chat. Every insult, every threat. I backed them up to my email, then to a cloud folder I'd made years ago for tax documents. Now it was holding evidence. Evidence of how my own blood had turned against me. For the first time since the attack, I felt a small flicker of control return. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to make sure they couldn't bury it. The next morning, I called a lawyer. My voice was hoarse, my sentences slow, but I laid it out: the assault, the threats, the proof. She didn't hesitate. "Keep everything. Don't respond to them directly. We'll handle the rest." I followed her instructions to the letter. I ignored my sister's texts, the fake concern, the passive-aggressive, "we should talk." I didn't reply when her husband sent a half-hearted apology that read more like a cover story. I thought I could keep it quiet, keep it controlled. Just me, my lawyer, and the truth, waiting for the right moment. But then the phone rang, and the voice on the other end turned my quiet plan into a public reckoning. The detective's office smelled faintly of stale coffee and rain-soaked carpet. I sat across from him, my side still aching every time I shifted. He flipped through the medical report, his brow furrowing deeper with each page. Multiple contusions to the jaw and ribs, pattern consistent with blunt force trauma, not defensive wounds. He looked up. This doesn't match his story. His story. My brother-in-law had told the police he acted in self-defense, that I had come at him in a rage, and he had no choice. If it hadn't been my life on the line, I might have laughed. I slid my phone across the desk, the cloud folder already open. There's more. The detective began scrolling. His eyes sharpened when he reached the group chat. He didn't skim. He read every word. When he reached walking ATM, his lips pressed into a thin line. When he reached, "if they won't pay, they'll pay in another way," he muttered something under his breath and glanced at his partner. "Get her in here," he said. Minutes later, my sister walked into the room. She still had that smirk, the one she wore when she thought she was in control. She took the chair across from me, crossing her legs like she was here for a casual chat. "What's this about?" she asked, tone bored. The detective didn't answer her right away. Instead, he turned the phone around and read the messages aloud. Slowly, clearly, letting each word hang heavy in the room. I watched her smirk falter, just a twitch at first, then a full collapse as the color drained from her face. "That's taken out of context," she stammered. "Pretty clear context to me," the detective said. "You and your husband discussed coercing your sibling into giving you money. Then he assaulted them. That's not just a family disagreement. That's intimidation and assault with intent." She turned to me, eyes wide, like I might save her, but I just looked back, steady, letting the silence answer for me. The detective closed the file. "We're pressing charges against both of you." For a moment, she looked like she might argue, but instead, she just slumped in her chair, hands twisting in her lap. The weight of it was finally settling on her. Walking out of that station, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The bruises still ached, but there was something new in my chest, a steadiness, a clarity. I thought maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of the end, that the worst was behind me. That night, I made tea and settled into the couch, the apartment finally feeling quiet again. My phone was face down on the table, and I was ready to leave it there. Until the knock came. Soft at first, then louder. When I opened the door, she was standing there, my sister, eyes red, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I just need to explain," she said, voice cracking. I thought the worst was over, until she showed up at my door, crying. She stood on my doorstep like a stranger wearing my sister's face. Her hair was unbrushed, her voice small, so different from the sharp, cutting tone she used in the kitchen that day. "Please," she whispered, "just drop the charges. He's been under so much stress. He didn't mean to—" I cut her off. "He meant every word, so did you." Her lip trembled. "It was just talk. We didn't think it through. We'll make it right. I'll pay you back. Just don't let this ruin us." Ruin us. As if I was the one tearing the family apart. as if her betrayal hadn't already burned through every bond we had. I stepped aside, just enough for her to see the folder on my table, thick with printed screenshots and photos of bruises. "This isn't going away," I said quietly. "You crossed a line you can't uncross." Her eyes hardened for a second, just long enough to remind me who she really was. Then she turned and walked away without another word. The weeks that followed were slow, heavy with legal motions and meetings with my lawyer. Every time I saw their names on the paperwork, I felt the old ache in my chest, but also a strange calm. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't making excuses for them. When court day arrived, I sat in the front row, my lawyer beside me. My brother-in-law shuffled in wearing a suit that didn't fit, jaw tight, eyes fixed straight ahead. My sister sat behind him, arms crossed, staring at the floor. The prosecutor laid it out clean: the medical report, the messages, the witness statements. Each piece landed like a hammer. I kept my eyes forward, listening to my life being dismantled in public. But for once I didn't feel exposed. I felt seen. When the verdict came, guilty on both assault and intimidation, my brother-in-law's shoulders dropped like the air had been punched out of him. My sister never looked my way, not once. Afterward, people asked if I felt vindicated. I didn't. This wasn't a victory parade. It was a funeral for a relationship I'd spent my life trying to protect. Months passed. The bruises faded, though a few left faint shadows on my skin. The nightmares came less often. I stopped checking my phone for her name. My apartment grew quieter, cleaner, lighter. One evening, I was making tea, the same way I had the night she knocked on my door, when I realized I could breathe without feeling like something was pressing down on my chest. Family had always been my anchor, but I learned anchors can drown you if you're chained to the wrong ones. I'd cut the rope, and for the first time in years, I was floating, not sinking. Some bonds break you, but cutting them can save you.